Welcome to Let's Talk with Coach Stone. Man, I can't believe that this is, I don't even know what episode. I think we're at 30 or 40 episodes already. We've been doing this for a long, long time. So I can't believe that we've been doing this Let's Talk with Coach Stone. Hey, what's up, Mrs. Alini? LA, what's going on? What's up, everybody? Um, Welcome to the show. I was just saying, I can't believe, I think this is, I've been doing live since March 19th. And I've been trying to keep a tally of how many I've done because I started on Facebook and then I switched over to doing these live shows. My boy Kurt's in here. And it's crazy. I think I've done about 40 plus lives. And so thank you guys. I know a lot of you guys have been rocking with me almost since the beginning. I know CP2 Brand has been here. Jill has been on here from the start. And so we have 2 episodes left. We have this one and we have another one on Friday. And then I have something else special coming for you guys. But today I have another great guest on. So I have to tag him in here. I had him on before, but we had some, it was a great show, but it didn't save. And so I had to ask him to come back because it was such a great show. So Kurt, I saw you come in here somewhere. Send a request to go live, Kurt. Let's see. I have my boy Kurt on here. So Kurt came on a while ago, and he's into real estate and investing and so on. And we had a really great conversation, and so I had to bring him back because it was so good. Here we go. Tagging you in now, Kurt. Okay, let me see. He's coming in here.
Hold on a second. 1 second, brother.
Yeah, switch that around. There he is.
I'm upside down, right side up.
You're all over the place. There he is. All right.
All right.
Yeah,
Brother, what you saying, man?
yeah, man. Yeah. So look, let me introduce you properly, and then we'll get into it. So welcome back to the show, Kurt. Kurt is the owner and founder and broker of record for First Time Realty, which is a real estate company and investment company. And, Kurt is a really good friend of mine. We go way, way back. And we always have these amazing conversations. So I'm like, actually, you're the reason that I started Let's Talk with Coach Stone, because we always have these great conversations. And I think after we had talked a couple of months ago, I said, you know what? I should start bringing my friends on so that we can have these conversations in front of people and they can see, the amazing things that come out of these conversations. So welcome to the show again, brother.
Man, it's an absolute pleasure to be here. Like you said, me and you, when we get together and we start chopping it up and putting our minds together, it's like we start creating a whole world of magic and craziness. You know what I mean? Like the options and everything are endless when we start talking. So I'm just great. It's just great to be here. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, of course. So you tell everybody what you do, all the jobs you have, all the businesses you have. You tell people what you do. You're better at it than I am.
Well, yeah, I'm a pretty busy guy. First and foremost, I'm a husband and a father. So obviously that's probably the biggest job in my life right there.
Sure.
That keeps me busy. But outside of that, I have my own real estate company, First Time Realty. We basically cater to the needs of first-time buyers, sellers, investors, anybody who's looking to get up on a little game in terms of real estate and how the whole process works. We're there for them in that sense as well. I've also coupled my real estate business with my insurance business, where I work for a company called Canfin Wealth Management. And what we do is we basically educate people on the importance of life insurance as one of the key structural elements in your overall foundation as an individual in terms of protecting your family moving forward. If anything were to happen to you or anything were to happen to your family members, it's good to have that foundation. So I figure, when you couple real estate and insurance together, you have some of the the key legs in terms of creating a solid foundation for your lives moving forward. So those
Man,
are the main things I do. Yes.
I mean, that's great. That's great. And talk to people a little bit. Like, so how long have you been in real estate?
In real estate, I've been in real estate for about 14 years.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been a long time. It's been a long time. It's something that was near and dear to my heart. It's always been something that I've really been drawn to in terms of the whole bricks and mortar aspect of it. Just the thought of owning a piece of real estate or property is something that's always been one of those things that's always stuck out in my mind, because I grew up in a situation where ownership wasn't something that was available at the time to myself and my family. So it was sort of always one of those things that was on the outskirts that I hope to always eventually attain.
But like, I come from the same thing. But did you always know that you were going to own a home? Like, was it more aspirational or something that you knew was going to happen?
No, it was aspirational. Absolutely. My brother, hold on 1 second.
Sure.
It's hot as heck in here.
Sure.
I got to turn the AC
Do your
up.
thing, man.
Second.
Turn up the AC. Yeah. So, one of the things that Kurt said is I grew up the same. I grew up in, like many of you probably heard this, but low income housing. And I never thought that I could own my own home. I never even had my own room growing up until I went away to university, So owning a home for me was never really in the cards. I never thought I could do it. And, me and my wife bought a house, I think about 8 years ago. And it was something that was just so rewarding to me because I never thought I could buy a home. So I completely can relate to what Kurt is saying. But go ahead and continue, man.
Yeah, my apologies, brother. I got to like Jamaica up in here.
That's all good, man.
I had to turn it up. I was dying. But yeah, I know, just real estate, man. Just the love, man. And I just know that it's one of those things that it affects pretty much anybody will be affected by real estate, either positively or negatively in one way, shape, or form. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
It's not something that anybody can avoid.
Right.
Right. So, in my opinion, if it's something that you're going to be in contact with anyway, you better try to get some understanding of how it could work to benefit your lives.
Right.
And move your family's goals forward in whatever way possible. Like it's that type of a tool that can be used, and if you know how to use it properly, it could definitely benefit you.
Right. And yeah, you're right. Like real estate, we're all involved in real estate, either as a renter, a buyer. There's only two aspects of it. Either you're renting your house from somebody else, or you're living, or you bought a house and you live in it. So you're right. We're all affected by real estate. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the conversation. So what advice would you give to like a first-time home buyer? What's something that you tell first-time home buyers all the time?
First-time home buyers, like I said, it just goes back to the education part of it. Like, before you even begin to search for a home, get to know a bit about the process, because there's a lot involved when you're buying when you're buying your first home, right? One of the key things is obviously the financing, and you want to know how the financing is going to come into play and how it's going to affect your overall bottom line of your family.
Right.
Because a lot of times people get into homes and they're approved for mortgages, but they haven't really assessed the true cost of ownership to the point where you're living in a home now for the first time, and it's really stressing your economic foundation.
Right.
And now you start to question, is this something that I really wanted?
Right.
Well, yeah, it's something that you really wanted, and it's something that you could absolutely benefit from, but you need to be educated as to the true cost of home ownership, right? Like, there's a lot of little things, you got your taxes, you got your utilities, you got your
lawyer fees,
mortgage, you got for closing, you got your lawyer fees, you got land transfer tax, and in Toronto, that's a real son of a gun. Like Toronto, you got to pay crazy amounts of land transfer tax.
Yeah.
Some people out of pocket at closing just for land transfer tax alone, they're paying like 20 grand.
Yeah.
That's something they didn't budget for.
Right.
Right. So they're almost being eaten alive before they even start the process.
Right. Right.
You know what I mean? So for me, if you're a first time buyer, one of the key things is just to get knowledgeable, get good advice about what all the key elements involved in the process are, because there can be quite a few, and they can be overwhelming if you're not informed.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I remember when we bought our house, like there was so many. Luckily, I had people like you and Kira and all these other people who were involved in real estate who really let us know. But there's a lot of costs that you don't even consider when you're about to buy a house, and I think it's really important that you do your homework, because I think it's really, really important. And so the other thing too, right, is like, what advice would you give people on choosing the right realtor? I know a lot of people that have had problems with their realtor, and for one reason or another, whether they were trying to force them to buy a house they didn't want to, they weren't showing them the right properties or whatever. Like, what advice would you give somebody trying to find the right realtor? And it's never too early to do that as well.
Absolutely. Finding the right realtor just comes down to a comfort level.
Yeah.
Right. You want to know that it's someone that you can trust, and it's someone that you can work with on a prolonged basis, because there's no guarantee that after you see your first home, that's going to be the one you purchase.
Right.
More than likely, you're going to see 15, 20, whatever the number is of homes before you purchase. And this is the person that's going to be riding with you through the whole process.
Right.
So you want to make sure that you trust their ability to guide you through the process. You trust their knowledge level. You trust their experience level.
Yeah.
You trust that your interests are above their interests at the end of the day, because a lot of times that's a fine line for a lot of people in the business world.
Right.
Right. Where your interest can sometimes, if you're not careful as a business person, take precedence over the person you're working for, and that's not right. So you want to make sure that at all times there is no conflict of interest, that their only interest is to make sure that whatever they're doing is in your best interest.
Wow.
So really just boils down to a trust thing for me personally.
Wow, that's good, man. That's really good advice. Ovid said, what would you say the percent I need to cover those hidden costs?
To cover the hidden costs, I would say budget like maybe 2 to 3% of the purchase price, or maybe 5% of the purchase price, depending on your locale, where you're from.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So yeah, I'd say about 5% of the purchase price would be something that would be reasonable in terms of a budget.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, you should be pretty much covered in that sense.
Trudy said, OMG, this is my wife, everybody. Trudy said, OMG, tell them how many houses we saw. I think we saw, what was it? We saw 34 houses in 50 days or something like that. I think, yeah.
34 houses?
Yeah.
Wow.
In the wintertime. And I was on crutches because I tore my Achilles tendon. So I was hopping around in crutches in the winter. I think we saw about 34 houses in 50 days, man. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
34. You guys are putting some mileage on the car.
In the car, in my one strong leg, so.
Okay. That's what we're saying. Like, that's what it takes sometimes. You're not going to immediately fall in love with the first house you see.
Yeah.
If anything, you see a few houses and you start to take bits and pieces from each house to say, man, I really like the way the dining room was set up here, but I'm not really feeling the overall layout. Then you go to the next house and you're like, I like the layout, but the dining room's all jacked up. And you start to sort of develop a picture for what your dream home should look like. And then ultimately you'll keep going until you find something that's reasonably close to that vision. And that takes time. Well,
and Trudy's right. Trudy said we were just about to give up. Actually, the house that we ended up buying was the very last house we saw. It's crazy. It was the very last one. And I think it's really important too, Kurt, that you said that, because the other thing you should let people know is sometimes you might actually find a house that you like, put in a bid, and not get it, right? So what advice would you give to people in those regards? Because you're excited, okay, we got the house, we put in a strong offer, and then no, we didn't get that one. And then I know that's happened to people 5, 6, 7 times. So what do you say to clients when that happens?
Well, when that happens, I think the best thing you could tell a client is don't get overly excited or overly emotional about the fact that you lost that bid, right? Because if you get overly emotional, what's going to happen is you're going to go into the next one thinking, man, I don't care what I got to pay. We're making the offer because I want to win this one.
That's
Like, I
true.
can't take another loss. Like, it's too much. And as soon as you get into that mindset, you're going to get yourself into problems, right? Because I think you always want to, even though a home is somewhere where you're going to live, you have to always look at it from an investment standpoint as well. You know what I mean? Sometimes even more so as an investment. And with an investment, you never want to overpay, right? And as soon as you get into that mindset of I took a loss on the last one, no, we got to get something now. And then you say, well, no, just cut the check for whatever they're asking. It doesn't matter, without truly analyzing your own personal financial position, as well as how it would fit into the local marketplace if you ever had to resell it. Without taking all those things into account, if you just throw a number out there because you want to win, you're going to find yourself in big trouble. So that's one of the things I would say is, if you lose, don't get disheartened. You're going to get one. It's just going to take a little time. That's all.
Man, that's good. That's really good information. Thanks, brother. Ovid said your first home is most likely won't be your forever home. So look to improve on what you viewed. That's true. How many homes do you think people buy? It's like jobs, right? Over the course of your career, you might have five different careers or jobs. Like, how many homes on average does a person buy over the course of their lifetime?
Man, that's hard to say. Like,
Yeah, I
but
know
at the
it's
very least, I would say at least two, possibly three.
okay.
If you're the average buyer, right?
Right.
But it's kind of funny now because the world is kind of changing now. Like, this new generation coming up, a lot of them don't have home ownership necessarily on their mind right out of the gate, right? Because of how prices have increased so much, a lot of them feel as if they've been priced out of the market. So where in our generation, by the time you hit 25, 26, you're already thinking, okay, I'd like to buy something. A lot of this new generation now, that's not really where they're at. So moving forward, if in our generation, say it's two, maybe three, maybe 4, 5, 6, if you're an investor, I think this new generation, they may be looking to buy a little bit later, possibly some of them, and it's hard to tell. It's hard to tell because if prices continue to go up the way they are, it's really hard to know moving forward what number that will be exactly for most people.
Okay. No, that's good. That's helpful. So, like, I know you seem to be like entrepreneurial since I've known you. Like, where did that kind of whole entrepreneurial mindset kind of come from?
Man, just reading, man, just educating myself, just reading, just realizing, just by watching how my mom did things, waking up every morning at 4:30 in the morning, getting my sister and myself ready, getting us off to daycare, booking it off to her job, with minimal return. When you really check it out, after all the bills are paid, what was really left over? You know what I mean? And I saw, I love my mother, of course, and I really appreciate everything she's ever done for us. But in having that sort of a model, I saw that you get so stuck in the security stage of life where you're just trying to secure yourself that you never get comfortable enough to try to advance yourself and to promote growth.
Right.
Right. So I find that when you're stuck in that 9 to 5, a lot of times, and it's fine to be in the 9 to 5, but I think you need to have a growth mindset whereby you're looking outside of your job for where you can find opportunities, because I think that's the only way to do it, really, because at the end of the day, like, your job, it's something that pays your bills, yes, but for a lot of people there's a ceiling on it. Right? And if we're looking to advance, and not only advance, if you're looking to build a legacy where you can pass something on to your children, to your family, really the only ways to do that are through entrepreneurship and through ownership, like real estate, for example. You can't pass your job on to your kids.
No, you can't.
And even if you could, would they want it?
Right.
You know what I mean? So a lot of times you got to be thinking legacy.
Right.
Right? Legacy is the key.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying?
No,
So
I love it. I love that. I think that's a good way to look at entrepreneurship, or to look at even a side hustle or something you can grow and build, because you're right. A job is a job. You can't pass your job on to your kids, but your legacy, a platform that you build, a business, that can carry on forever. uh, and I think that's something that you can hand off to your kids. So I'm glad that you said that, because sometimes we get caught up with our job, and we think that this is as good as it gets. And like you said, we're afraid to push ourselves. We're afraid to put ourselves out there. And I want people to know, like, you can start a side hustle while you're working your 9 to 9 job. You know what I'm saying? Like, Kurt and I both had businesses while we were working at a job, you know? So I think that's important for people to understand. So let people know, like, you know, a little bit about that it's okay to start a job, a side hustle while you have a job.
Not only is it okay, it's actually a must. It's 100% must. It's a necessity, right? Because even if you look at what's going on in the world today, you know what I mean? Where basically people have lost a lot of control over their own personal economics, in the sense that things have been forced to be shut down. People are out of work, right? And people's primary incomes or only source of income has been basically either limited or annihilated or eliminated, right? So if they had something else on the go, then at least in some way they could supplement their lifestyle, either until the economy came back, or at that point they could take it as a jump off point where now they can move entirely into that area.
Yeah.
Right. But I think when we get locked into this, you know, wake up every day, serve someone else's needs, advance advance their overall vision of what they want rather than looking to our own, we get stuck. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with starting a side hustle. Like I said, it's a must. It's a must. And I can't stress that enough. Like, it's an absolute must. And I think people are starting to realize that now.
You know, ever since I was 19, I've always had 2 jobs, or a job and a side hustle. Since I was 19, you know, I just never, I saw a lot of good people getting let go from jobs, like hardworking people. Even places I worked, like the last place I worked, I used to manage the performance management system. So managers would come to me for information about people's ratings and so on. So I saw people who are 5 stars, 5 out of 5 stars in terms of their performance, get let go. And so, you know, having seen that, and the same thing, my mom, you know, busting her butt, working for the federal government year after year. And you know, unfortunately, we didn't have much to show for it. I've just always kind of had that entrepreneurial mindset as well. And I think you're right. Like, we have to stop thinking that we can't start this side hustle. It's completely possible. I mean, you got two businesses on the go right now. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's important. So what is one thing that you've learned about yourself since, you know, you becoming an entrepreneur? What's one thing that you learned about yourself?
One thing that I've learned about myself is that I won't necessarily quit. I don't quit. Right? There's been many times where I've failed at what I was attempting to do, or the deal or whatever the case is didn't work out, and you may be disheartened in those moments, but I don't quit. Like, I may take a step back, you know, just to reassess, which I think is important, because if you don't reassess to determine where you went wrong, you're probably going to make the same mistakes again, right? So in that sense, it's a good thing to do, is to step back and reassess, but you got to at some point have a jump back in point, right? Where you completely almost have amnesia and you forget the failures of the past, no matter how recently they were, and you jump back in and you go again.
I think that's important. As an entrepreneur, sometimes people, you know, I know people who just want to become entrepreneurs because they're like, oh, this is great. You just have the freedom to do what you want. Money rolls in. That's not how it works. As an entrepreneur, it's a roller coaster. And, you know, like you said, sometimes the deal doesn't go through, or you have a downturn in your business. And that's when you really have to be resilient, right? And stepping back and seeing where you went wrong. And then you have to jump up and have that next conversation, like you just didn't fail with the last one, right? Like, that's like very challenging for a lot of people to do, but that's what you have to do as an entrepreneur, right?
Absolutely.
Some comments here. her social groove and baby said, growing up, getting a good job was always what was pushed. I only recently started thinking of legacy. That's great. Start thinking about legacy. Misha said, that is the generational wealth we are all trying to achieve to pass on to our children. I agree with that. Ovid said, agreed. Always have a side hustle or another job. So that's
Yeah,
great.
no, absolutely. Legacy, man. Like there's few people, if anybody, you love more than your own children or your family members, right? And at the very least, you want to make sure that when you pass on, as we all will eventually. Yeah, I personally haven't met anyone yet who's been able to dodge death like they're still here. Like eventually, we all got to pay the piper, do what we got to do, move on to the next life. That's how it works, right? But in doing so, you want to ensure that those that you leave behind are set up in a way that they can advance the lineage, advance the cause. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And you do that through knowledge and education that you instill in them. But in a more tangible way, you also do that with assets. You do that with money. You do that with insurance, right? And there's been certain communities in this world who have been doing this generationally for many years, right? And it's there's we as a community, we need to catch up in the sense that we start to recognize that it's not only about this moment right now on this earth for us personally, right? We need to be setting up the game that when we exit the game, the players who remain on the board are able to proceed and eventually win.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like the game goes on. When you leave the game, it doesn't mean the game shuts down. The game goes on. You see what I'm saying? That people,
I get it. Yeah.
you see what I'm saying?
And
Yeah.
I think that's that's a great question, and that's a great segue too, Kurt, into why insurance is so important. That's a great segue into that. So
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Like if you think about the key elements of legacy, you think about real estate, you think about business ownership, you think about some sort of cash flowing other asset or appreciating other asset like stocks or mutual funds or bonds or something like that. But then you also have to add the real estate leg. I mean, the insurance leg to that, right? Because insurance is something that even if you were unable to start a business, right? Even if you were unable to acquire real estate in your time, even if you were unable to purchase stocks or you just did not, right? Rather than simply leave your family with a bill, which is what you will do, because whether or not they have whatever, they have stuff to pay. At the end of the day, they have final expenses to pay. They have funerals to pay for, right? So in essence, all you've done is left them a bill, right? And nobody wants to do that to their family.
right.
And what insurance does is it's a tax-free benefit whereby your family can get 500,000, a million, whatever the case is, whatever you qualify for, at very low cost relative to the death benefit payout, at very low cost that they can use to, again, further the legacy. Right? In my opinion, there's no excuse, not at the very least. You cannot have a house. You cannot start a business. You cannot do a number of things. But at the very least, there's no excuse to not have life insurance to protect your family.
Wow, that's great. I think that's really great. And I think the fact that you said it's at a very relatively low cost, because, the excuse that a lot of people say is, insurance is too expensive and, all of these things. So I'm glad that you said that it's a relatively low monthly cost that you can have, insurance and some well-being, knowing that if something happens to you, your family's taken care of.
Bro, it's too expensive not to have it.
Right.
It may not be expensive to you
Right.
because you're in the ground, and that's fine.
Right.
But it may be expensive to somebody to not have it because what it's doing is it's costing people their futures, right? It's costing people their futures.
Yeah.
And that's a heavy expense.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Like,
and a lot of rifts in families are caused because there is no insurance and there's no will. I've seen lots of families feuding because who's going to pay for the funeral, starting GoFundMes. There's no will. People don't know where the money's going, where it's coming from. I know a lot of family rifts that have happened over not having a will and not having insurance.
100%. 100%. Now you're talking about estate planning, like having a will.
Yeah.
Like all of these things are key elements,
Yeah.
key parts of planning that I think because we get so caught up in the day-to-day minutia of the things that we normally do, we forget to plan. We forget that there's another element to life, right? And it's key, like you said, estate planning, where you prepare the wills, where it's written basically in stone what each person is supposed to get, how your estate's supposed to be distributed. All of these things are writing, because guess what? If you don't prepare a will, they call it dying intestate, right? And what that is basically Ontario law steps in, and they use what's called succession law.
Right.
So basically, you may have wanted the money to go over here, but they now use their template of succession law, which states that the spouse gets it first. Then after the spouse, the children are in line, and then it runs down aunt, uncle, and they have their way of doing it.
Right.
Right. So once it gets stuck in that probate situation, then basically whatever your wishes were, they're out the window. Whoever the Ontario law determines gets what you wanted to give to somebody else, they'll get.
And we need to stop this, because a lot of people don't want to talk about death. They don't want to talk about the will. They don't want, like, we have to stop this. Fool, it's crazy. You have to stop saying, I don't want to talk about death. I don't want to talk about a funeral. I don't want, like, so what? You would rather burden your family with trying to figure it out? You would rather a rift between your, like, we have to really stop that mindset, because I know so many people that have that. And the other thing is, it doesn't matter if you own a property or whatever little you think you have, you can still write a will for that stuff, right?
Oh,
you can still write a will. You don't have to own a $1 million property. Like, what are the things that you own, right?
Right.
And decide how that's going and where it's going to go. Ovid said the earlier you get into insurance, the cheaper it is, and for the long term of not your whole life. Jill said, OMG, so many issues arise. I could write a book about all of the things that go wrong. You see what I'm saying?
I've seen so many things go wrong when that's concerned. So many.
It's crazy.
To the point where, like you said, like it creates rifts in families.
Yeah.
Because now everybody is looking for everybody else to cover costs, to cover expenses, but everyone's feeling like, man, I got my own problems.
Right.
You know what I mean? And now people are avoiding each other. No one's giving the death of the loved family member the respect it deserves. You know what I mean? And it's one of those things where if you were just a little more prudent in the planning process of everything, that would have been covered.
Right.
And then you could have came together as a family and did what you had to do, mourn properly, and remain in love with your family.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Man, that's so important. That's such an important thing. You know, thanks for sharing that, because I think that's really important. I think, you know, it's a underlooked thing that can really help us build our legacy. And you and I were talking about that. Like, insurance can help. It's a part of building your legacy that a lot of people just overlook. So I'm glad that you said that, man. It's so important for us to understand that. Jill said every single time. Yeah, it's a lot of drama with that. So I know that you're the type of person, you're somebody who's always learning and always researching and all of that kind of stuff. Where'd you get that kind of mindset from? Every time I talk to Kurt, he's always learning something new or reading a book, or I just picked this thing up on YouTube. Where did all that come from?
You know what? I feel like after every time I pick up a new piece of information, it's almost like I'm powered up. Right. It's almost like I've gained another level, and it increases my strength. You see what I'm saying? And increasing my strength, it increases my sense of self-worth.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it allows me to become the person that, or one step closer to the person that I've always wanted to be. Right? And that's a person who is knowledgeable about things, a person who respects information, a person who can become innovative in his own thought process, who can become creative in my own thought process. And a lot of the times when creation and innovation are involved, You're taking bits and pieces from others who have created and innovated in the past.
Right.
Right. And if you never open those books, if you never watch these videos, you'll never get that learning element whereby you take bits and pieces of what you've learned and you create something entirely new. Like, you'll totally miss out on that. You'll totally miss out on that. And if you rely solely on traditional educational institutions,
forget it.
You're missing out again. You're missing out again, because there's a place for schools and traditional education. But what I will tell you is there are many holes in schools and traditional education. They don't tell you everything. And if they do tell you certain things, a lot of times there's a spin.
Right.
It's not entirely true.
Right. Right.
Especially when you're getting into history and
Right.
and all of these other past
Right.
events. You see what I'm saying?
Well,
So you need to be a person who goes out and look for yourself.
Well, they don't even tell you the difference between a checking and a savings account. So like you're not learning a lot of real world tools in school, like, that are going to help you. Like, if you don't even know the difference between a savings and a checkings account, you don't know what a stock is, you don't know what investment is, right? So there's a lot of these things, even goal setting. Like, I was saying this to somebody else. It's like, who taught you how to set goals? As a grown adult, where do you learn how to set goals? It's not something that you're taught. People just assume. You get in a job and they just assume that you know how to set goals. And most of the time, it's wrong. You know what I mean? So we never even learn how to set goals. So you're right. We have to be the ones that seek out knowledge, right? And we have to be the ones that seek out books and seek out videos and all this information. And you often talk about mentors as well. Like, talk a little bit about, like, the importance of mentors in your life and in your business.
Yeah, absolutely. I've had some pretty decent mentors along the way. Like, if you speak just from early childhood, I had a cousin who when we speak about innovation and creation, like, that's him.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, this is the type of guy that could take something apart and put it back together in 3 or 4 different ways and make it do 3 or 4 different things. Like, this guy's mind was that creative when it came to mechanical things.
Wow.
Right. So for me, that was a sense of motivation and inspiration watching him. So he definitely was a sorry, what do you call
Mentor.
it? Mentor. He definitely was a mentor in my life, 100%. And then moving forward in my life in terms of business, early on, I worked for a couple of real estate brokerages, where one in particular, the broker of record there, he was such a knowledgeable guy about real estate and so willing to share information that I believe that it sort of accelerated my learning in the area of real estate.
Wow.
Right. And it accelerated my love for real estate because he showed me little intricacies that I never would have been able to figure out on my own.
Right.
Right. In terms of how to deal with clients, securing finance, like little things that you're not going to pick up in a book that are based on 30 years of experience that I was basically able to extract and use. So definitely that mentor in that area was something that was unbelievable.
Wow.
And everybody at some point definitely should try to find a mentor where they can sort of extract some of the experience and some of the knowledge from these individuals, because it saves you from having to go out and experience some of the negative things yourself, if you take some of this with you. So
no, man, that's great. I think that's so important. Mentorship is key. It's made me who I am. I have different mentors to this day for different things. I have a legacy and community building mentor, somebody I look to, my friend Louis, he's somebody that I look to build a legacy and to be a part of community and build community. So I have different mentors for different things. And you're right. Having a mentor can just accelerate you in whatever area of your life you're looking to accelerate. It can be a fitness mentor. It can be a career, a business. It can be a relationship, anything, right? And I think the other thing too that people should know is that if you don't have to know that mentor personally. I follow Tony Robbins. I follow Les Brown. I follow Lisa Nichols. I follow all these people. I've only met Lisa Nichols once in person, but I don't know Tony Robbins personally. I don't know Les Brown personally, but I follow their work and I read their books. So to me, they're my virtual mentors. You know, and I think that's important too.
Absolutely. No, I know exactly what you mean, because in my head, I have like a round table, and I got Malcolm sitting there. I got all kinds of different individuals whose books I've read over the time sitting there. And anytime I come across something where I need a little bit of guidance, depending on what the situation is, whether it's personal, business, or otherwise, yeah, I'm able to seek the counsel of those individuals whose basically lives I've been able to experience through the readings. I'm able to seek their counsel by just reflecting on what it is based on what I know about them. What would they do in this particular situation?
Right, right.
Because each of them have had failures, they've had successes, they've had joy, they've had pain in their life, right? Just like all of us.
Right.
Right? And the reason we're even reading about them is because they're of such exceptional character that they were able to overcome these things.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm now in a similar situation, I can now, look for some form of insight from them, and then overcome it myself, basically.
No, I love that. And the other thing I think that we have to learn to do as people is to ask for help. You know, so many times we're stuck in our life or we're stuck in our business and people just don't ask for help. You know, have there been times where you kind of like were in those positions where you just couldn't figure something out in your life or your business and you just had to reach out? You're like, I need help. Like, you know, what about that? Like, has that been the case for you?
Yeah, there's absolutely been many times where I've needed help. There's also been times where I haven't been smart enough to ask for help.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the growth process, where you start to realize that it's actually impossible to achieve anything on your own.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like you absolutely need the help of a team. You know what I mean? Because you're only one person. There's only a certain amount of hours in a day. You know, and sometimes what you're trying to understand is actually above your knowledge level.
True.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you're actually wasting a lot of time trying to figure it out, because now you're going to make a lot of mistakes along the way, whereby if you had team members who filled certain seats on that bus,
right,
you could at that point turn to that particular individual and say, listen, this is what's going on. Like, how would you best handle it? And then step back.
Right.
And then step back. And ultimately, in stepping back, you're going to be stepping forward a few steps,
right,
because it will advance the cause. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's really important. Sometimes you have to step back, ask for help, reflect in order to move not one step forward, sometimes even 5 or 6 steps forward just from that.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely.
And so, like, you know, a lot of people say to me, I just spoke to some young entrepreneurs about a week ago, and they were saying, I'm just starting my business, and my family doesn't believe in me, my friends don't believe in me. You have people who are haters or who just don't believe in you. Like, how did you deal with that? How did you deal with people like not believing in your business or what you're trying to do, your goals, your dreams? How do you deal with that?
Well, I've never believed, first of all, that people believing you is a requisite for anything. To me, like I've always done what I'm gonna do regardless.
Right.
And I've always been the type where I'll tell you what my intentions are.
Right.
I'll invite you on the journey.
Right.
But if it's something that you think is ridiculous, or you don't want to be a part of, or if you have something better to do, then what's going on here? Hold on a second.
Oh, looks like you got cut out. What Kurt was talking about is interesting, because I said this, I think the other day on one of these lives. You have to kind of put people on notice instead of asking them permission. You got to put them on notice instead of asking them permission. And I think that's kind of what I think Kurt was trying to say. Stop asking people for permission and like put them on notice in terms of what you're doing. Right?
Hello?
Yeah, I got you.
Hey, sorry about that. I don't know what happened there.
That's cool.
Some kind of notification just popped up.
Yeah,
But
so
yeah,
you were saying like you don't ask people, you don't, it doesn't matter
oh,
what other people think about your goals and your dreams.
not even close. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I'm gonna do it regardless.
But
I'm gonna do it
how did you
regardless.
develop that mindset though? How did like I'm sure people want to know like how did you develop this mindset?
Man, maybe just being hard headed. I don't know. Just being hard headed, possibly. But I've always been the type where if you tell me I can't do it, my mind just starts to go into overdrive, and I'm trying to figure out 100 different ways that I can do it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because I believe personally, there's a million different ways to do one thing,
Right.
right? There's a million different paths to take to get that result,
Right.
right? So it's a matter of finding what works best for you as an individual.
Right.
Because when someone says that it can't be done or they can't do it, what they're saying, what they're saying is they can't do it,
Right.
right? If they say that it can't be done, in essence, what they're really saying is they can't do it. They
Right.
haven't found the answer, or they're unwilling to find the answer. But I guarantee it can be done.
Right.
It can be done,
Right.
right? With a little bit of ingenuity, innovation, creation, anything can be done.
Right.
But it requires keeping your mind open to the possibilities.
Right. Right.
You know what I'm saying?
No, I get you. And
Yeah.
I think this is what holds a lot of people back from, taking action and just starting a business or going after their goals. I think that they just lack that mindset or they can't see how they're going to do it. Sometimes you just got to figure out what you want, why you want it, and then the how will come later.
It'll come, man. Sometimes you just got to accept that you're blind and just roll with it same way. Just keep going. If you're going to hit a wall, you're going to hit a wall.
Right.
Right? But you're going to live to fight another day. You're going to keep going. Like, eventually, the light will shine in.
Right.
Eventually, a light will go off in your head.
Right.
Right? Sometimes you're going to be feeling around in the dark, but I guarantee you, in that process, you're going to be learning along the way, and it will illuminate something. And then you're going to find your path. But if you give up, there is no path to be found. That's
Man,
it.
That's great advice. I think you just got to start, man. We have to stop talking ourselves out of things because we're afraid or we don't know how. Just get started. Just start. And you can
100%.
figure like this is the thing that we have to understand as humans. We're naturally creative. We're resourceful. And we're whole. We're not broken. We're whole. So we're naturally creative, resourceful, and whole. Then you can definitely figure things out along the way, right? There's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken. You're not stupid. You're resourceful, right? I think that's what you're saying.
Brother, we're created in the greatness of God, man. It's like, you know what I mean? Our essence, our being is of resilience.
Right.
Is of resilience.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Of not giving up. We've been blessed with gifts, each and every one of us. The problem is some of us don't realize that.
Yeah.
And for some of us, it's harder to pull that out.
Right.
So it lies dormant within us.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? It lies there, just waiting for the day when it can be expressed. Some of us never reach that day. Some of us reach it later. But the truth is, I know it sounds cliche, but it's there. It's been placed there by God, man. It's there.
Right.
It's only up to you to reach down and pull it out.
Right. So what are one or two things that people could do to get that out of them? What could they do?
Man, first of all, I'll always say this: believe in the higher power, man. Because there's a lot of times when you're living on this earth, of this earth, for this earth, you could be discouraged in a lot of ways. Because there are a lot of negativities, there are a lot of naysayers, right? But it's at that time where, if you just get in touch with the Creator in a lot of ways, bro, you'll move forward regardless.
Right.
Regardless, 100%. Regardless.
Yeah.
Regardless.
And I think that, I often talk to people about having a morning ritual, which consists of that for me. I give thanks to God as soon as I wake up, but it's also searching, meaning, meditation, mantra. Like, what are you saying to yourself? So many of us believe these negative things about ourselves. We believe these lies. I'm stupid. I'm not attractive. Nobody wants me. I'm not worthy. We wake up, I have to go to this stupid job. Like, we have this negative mindset as soon as we wake up. So we have to learn to train our brain to be like, no, I have something in me. I have greatness. This is who I am. This is what I'm striving to be, right? And I think doing those couple of things, like programming your mind every morning to be great, that's how you elevate your life.
No, 100%. Everything starts in your mind, man.
Yeah.
The first creation is in your mind.
Yeah.
Your thought is the first creation. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Nothing is created in the physical realm without first here.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? That's first creation.
Right.
Right? So through that, you're able to write any program you want. You see what I'm saying? And then through actions, the program eventually manifests.
Right.
Right? And then you pick up steam and you grow and things start to happen. But absolutely, you have to protect this right here.
Yeah.
You'll get people who laugh, who don't believe, but really and truly, it's their own personal, natural insecurities that they've never explored. Right? So for them, it's natural to be a hater. It's natural to be a naysayer. It's built into their DNA.
Mm-hmm.
But what I'm telling you is, if you're an aware person, you can overcome all of that. And it starts in the brain.
Mm-hmm.
It starts in your mind. Sorry, it starts in your mind. When you get in control of your mind, nothing else matters.
That's so true. You know, I often tell people, if you want to change your life, you just have to make 4 changes. You have to change your language, what you say about yourself, right? You have to change your actions, what you do every day. You have to change your mindset, and you have to change your habits. You change those 4 things, your life's going to change, right? So it's exactly what you're saying. I love that, man. That's great. So what would you say is like how do you balance being an entrepreneur and like be a family, a husband? How do you balance that? Because I know that's tough for a lot of people. How do you do it?
Well, it's not always easy. It's not always easy, to be honest with you. You know, you often feel like if you're doing one thing, you should be over there. If you're like, for example, if you're working on the business, you should be with your family. So you're kind of stricken with that grief. And then if with your family, or guilt, I should say, and then with your family, if you're with your family, you often feel as if you should be doing something in the business, right? So again, it's about gaining control of your mind and realizing that, you know, you're doing the best that you can sometimes. You know what I mean? Like, the balance is not always the easiest thing, and sometimes you're going to sacrifice certain things.
Right.
Right. And there have been times where I've sacrificed the business side for the family side.
Right.
And there's times where you sacrifice the family side for the business side.
Right.
You know, because unfortunately, sacrifice is one of those things where it's going to have to be made one way or another.
Right.
Right. Because you can't keep all the balls in the air at all times, right? So it's good when you have people around you who understand, you know what I mean, the sacrifices that you're making, most likely for the family, and they kind of get, you know, what you're trying to achieve and the progression of things, whereby they stand by you and support you more often than not. So
no,
it is a tough.
No, that's a great point. And there is no real such thing as work-life balance. It's not a balance. This requires me to spend more time right now with my family because that's what's needed. Then it's my health and wellness. Then it's my business. Then it's always something that requires more time and more effort at any given time. So the thing about people thinking that there's this actual balance, it doesn't even exist. It's just where should you be putting your time at any given time? Like, where should your efforts be, right? So we have to stop thinking that everything is supposed to be equal. 25% goes to this, 25% to this, 25. No, that's not how work life or business life balance. There's no such thing as that.
It kind of really boils down to your people being on board, really, and understanding the sacrifices that need to be made. Because really and truly, being an entrepreneur, it's a sacrifice. It is a sacrifice. You know, hopefully with a payout at some point, but it absolutely is a sacrifice.
Well, here's the other thing too, and this is why I always tell people: if you decide to start a side hustle or you decide to start a business, it has to be something that you're passionate about, something you're curious about, or something that you're into. It can't be just about money because of the things that we're talking about. It requires a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of ups and downs. And I see a lot of people just run out there and say, oh, well, Kurt's doing real estate, I'm going to do that. Or Danny's doing speaking, I'm going to do that. Or my boy's doing drop shipping, and they have no interest in it whatsoever. and 2 months later they quit, or 5 months later or 6 months later. It has to start with something that you're passionate about or something that you're curious about. Would you agree with that?
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Because that's sort of the fuel. Your passion is the fuel.
Right.
Because there's gonna be plenty of times where it's like you hit these potholes along the way, and you're ready to just break down, and it's like almost throw your hands up and forget about it.
Right.
But if you're passionate about the thing, it's not so much the events that happen to you that determine whether or not you go on. It's that fire, that fuel, and that love that in you for that particular thing that's going to push you forward. So passion is huge. Because if you're just going based on the details of something, or the trying to make money of something, and when you hit those potholes, it's not going to be enough to sustain you.
No.
It's really not.
No.
It's really not.
And I've been there. I've started businesses just to make money. I've started businesses just to be recognized and for accolades, and they didn't last. I fell off after 3-4 months because it wasn't what I was passionate about. So I completely agree with you. So we got about 3 or 4 minutes left. What do you want people to know about you, or what do you want them to know about your business?
Well, first time realty. What's that? Oh, okay. First time realty. Yeah, absolutely. First time realty. Like I said, like, we're there for first time buyers, sellers, and investors. The real estate market right now is sort of in a flux, right? Based on what's going on in the world right now with the whole COVID-19 situation, until that's fully determined and sorted out, real estate is going to be something that's sort of moving in a zigzag pattern.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for example, right now we've gone into stage 2, and other parts of the world are opening up as well. So people are feeling more emboldened now to get out and to start to begin to look at real estate.
Mm-hmm.
So what we're finding is home prices are actually staying relatively steady.
Okay.
Homes are still being sold within a reasonable amount of time. So we still have an active marketplace. Although inventory is down,
right?
We have had in the last little while buyers who are looking to buy for the first time actually join the market because of the new rules that have just recently come in from CMHC, which basically have to do with your loan to value ratios, where you can get your down payment from, and various other things. So people have actually flooded the market right now. But what I'm trying to say is, there's a lot of things going on right now, and you're going to need proper guidance because of instability of everything right now, right? And that's basically what First Time Realty does. We ensure that current market conditions are respected in terms of our knowledge there and our past experiences used, and we bring it together to sort of form a picture and to help people to move forward in that process. And then, of course, insurance is something that's coupled with real estate, because now that you own real estate, now you have to secure that for yourself and your family moving forward. So both of those things are elements that we are very heavily involved in.
Wow, man. Thanks a lot for all of this information, man. That was a lot of great knowledge that you shared with us, man. Thanks for being back on the show. Everybody, make sure that you follow Kurt. It's Kurt.ftr, First Time Realty. Make sure you follow him. I mean, he has lots of great information. If you have any questions about real estate or insurance, make sure you send him a DM. I mean, he was in here dropping knowledge today. So thanks so much for being on here again, Kurt. Really appreciate it, brother.
All right, man. I appreciate it, man. Like I said, I love the show, man. So it was a great time as always.
Well, this is the second last show. I got one more show on Friday, and then I was telling Kurt we're switching it up. We're doing something different. But for anybody who hasn't checked out the podcast, make sure you go to the Grind and Gratitude Show. Check it out, subscribe, and like, because we have something else that's going to be coming in the next week or two around the podcast. So thanks a lot, brother. I really appreciate you being here, man.
All right, brother. We'll be seeing you, man.
All right. Take care, everybody.
All right. See you.
See you.
All right.